The restaurant was dimly lit, filled with the soft hum of laughter and clinking wine glasses. I was sitting across from my fiancé, Ethan, still adjusting to the weight of the diamond ring on my finger. It sparkled under the chandelier like it held a secret of its own, a promise, a future, a love story just beginning. But all of that changed the moment his mother, Veronica, arrived. She was elegant, dressed in pearls that screamed old money. Her perfume hit before her words did, sharp, commanding, impossible to ignore. She smiled, that kind of smile that wasn't really a smile at all, and her eyes went straight to my hand. "Oh," she said lightly, "so that's the engagement ring." I nodded, still nervous, but proud. Ethan had saved up for months to buy it, and though it wasn't massive, it was beautiful, subtle, elegant, perfect for me. Veronica's laughter cut through the air like glass breaking. "Darling," she said, turning to Ethan, "you could have done better. It looks fake." She tilted her head, her lips curling. "Honestly, it looks like something from a pawn shop. Are you sure it's even real?" The table went silent. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, trying to brush it off. But I sat there frozen, my fingers instinctively wrapping around the ring. I wanted to say something, defend it, defend him, but the lump in my throat wouldn't move. I felt humiliated. My cheeks burned as Veronica reached for her wine, satisfied with the chaos she'd caused. That night, when we got home, Ethan tried to make it better. "You know my mom," he said softly. "She likes to push buttons." But I couldn't shake it. Her words had sunk deep. The next morning, I stared at the ring again. It glimmered in the sunlight pouring through our small apartment window, just as it had in the restaurant. It was beautiful. But now I couldn't stop wondering, was it real? I told myself it didn't matter, that love wasn't about cariots or certificates, but curiosity can be a dangerous thing. That afternoon, while Ethan was at work, I found myself walking downtown toward a little jewelry store I'd passed 100 times. It wasn't one of those big chain stores. This one looked personal, old-fashioned, the kind of store where the owner knew every customer by name. When I pushed the door open, a soft chime rang out. Behind the counter stood an elderly man with kind eyes and steady hands. "Good afternoon," he greeted me. "How can I help you today?" I hesitated, then held out my hand. "I just wanted to check something, my engagement ring. I'd like to know if it's real." He nodded, motioning for me to sit while he took the ring under a magnifying lamp. I waited, trying to calm my heartbeat. The sound of the tiny gears of the magnifier filled the silence. Then something changed in his face. His brow furrowed slightly. He adjusted the lamp, leaned closer, then without a word, stood up and quietly turned the lock on the shop's front door. The sound of the click sent a chill down my spine. "Is something wrong?" I asked. He looked at me, really looked at me, with a mix of concern and disbelief. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Miss, this ring, where did you get it?" For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. The old jeweler's voice was calm, but hedged with something that made my stomach twist. He took a slow breath and said again, "Where did you get this ring?" "My fiancé bought it," I stammered. "Why, is it fake?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he adjusted his glasses and held the ring beneath the lamp once more. The diamond caught the light and scattered it across the walls in perfect fragments. Too perfect, too sharp. "No," he finally said, "it's not fake." He paused. "It's rare." That should have made me happy, but the way he said it, rare, not beautiful, made my pulse race. He disappeared into a back room, returned with a thick reference book, and flipped through its pages until he stopped at a photograph. "See this?" he asked, pointing to a grainy image of a ring almost identical to mine. This was reported stolen in 1998 from a private collection in Paris. The diamond was called the Winter Star. The room tilted slightly. Stolen? He nodded gravely. It vanished after a robbery that left one man dead. I never expected to see it again. My fingers went cold. That can't be right. Ethan said he bought it from a local boutique. Do you know which one? The jeweler cut in. I shook my head. He sighed. I'll need to verify the serial engraving inside the band. If it matches the Winter Star, you might be holding evidence of a crime. A wave of disbelief crashed over me. The ring Veronica had mocked as fake junk might actually be worth a fortune and drenched in blood. He set the ring under another light and tilted it slightly. The diamond shimmered like frozen fire. It's been recut, but the inscription's still there. Whoever altered it knew what they were doing. Then he looked up, eyes narrowing. Do you trust your fiancé? The question hit harder than I expected. I wanted to say yes, that Ethan was kind, hardworking, loyal. But lately, there had been signs. Late-night calls he brushed off, receipts he hid, a strange tension every time his phone buzzed. My throat tightened. I think so. The jeweler leaned closer. You need to be careful. If what I suspect is true, someone wanted this ring to disappear. Before I could respond, his landline rang, a sharp, jarring sound that broke the heavy silence. He picked it up, listened for a second, and then his expression changed again, almost fearful. Yes, he said quietly into the receiver. She's here. I froze. She's here. He hung up slowly and met my gaze. You should go home, now. Don't tell anyone about this conversation. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. What's going on? I demanded. He looked toward the locked door, then back at me. Someone has been looking for this ring for years. If they know you have it. He didn't finish. Instead, he unlocked the door, pressed the ring back into my hand, and whispered, "Be smart. Keep it safe." The cold October air slapped my face as I stepped outside. My heart was thundering. Who had called him? How could a simple engagement ring tied to a Parisian robbery? I walked fast, clutching the ring, trying to piece it together. Veronica's cruel comments suddenly felt different, almost rehearsed, like she wanted me to question the ring. Maybe she knew. That night, Ethan came home humming, as if nothing in the world was wrong. "Hey, babe," he said, dropping his keys. "You okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. "Just tired." He kissed my forehead, but I could feel him studying me, sensing the distance I couldn't hide. I slipped the ring off and set it on the counter. "Do you remember where you bought this?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. He blinked. "Why?" "Just curious. The jeweler wanted to clean it." For the smallest second, his expression flickered, something like alarm. Then it vanished. Downtown. Some clearance sale." "Why?" "Which store?" "I don't remember the name," he said quickly. Too quickly. That was the moment the certainty began to crumble. The man I thought I'd marry had given me a ring connected to a crime, and now I wasn't sure which part of our love story was real. That night, long after Ethan fell asleep, I sat by the window, the ring glinting in my palm. The city lights outside blurred into streaks of gold and white. Somewhere, someone had died for this diamond. Somewhere, a thief had vanished. And now it was sitting in my hand like a ticking clock. I whispered into the darkness, What are you hiding, Ethan? The next morning, I would start digging for answers, but I had no idea that by the time I found them, I'd be standing face to face with a man who wasn't who he claimed to be. Sleep never came that night. I kept hearing the jeweler's words on repeat. Someone's been looking for this ring. The idea sank into me like frost. I didn't know if I was scared for myself, for Ethan, or for the truth that was slowly clawing its way out of the shadows. By morning, I had made up my mind. I needed answers, and I couldn't rely on Ethan to give them to me. While he showered, I grabbed his coat from the hallway rack. His phone was inside, tucked into the pocket. The screen lit up as I picked it up, and that's when I saw it. A string of missed calls from an unsaved number, all from the night before. The last one came at 10:17 p.m., just before he came home. My stomach turned. I shouldn't have, but I opened his messages. There weren't many. Most had been deleted, but one conversation was still there. A single thread that read, "Unknown. She took the ring to a jeweler. You need to fix this before it's too late." The world seemed to tilt. I dropped the phone like it burned. Fix this? Who was this person? And how did they know I'd gone to the jeweler? I heard the shower stop. Panic flooded me. I slipped the phone back, heart pounding so hard it felt like my ribs might crack. When Ethan came out, steam trailing behind him, I pretended to be making coffee, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Rough night?" he asked. "Just thinking," I said softly. He glanced at the counter. The ring wasn't there. I'd tucked it into my jacket pocket earlier. His eyes flickered with the smallest trace of worry before he masked it with a grin. "You're not having second thoughts, are you?" I laughed weakly. "Of course not." But I was. That afternoon, I went back to the jewelry store. The bell above the door rang again, but this time there was no answer. The lights were off. A handwritten note was taped to the glass. Closed until further notice. A chill ran down my spine. Yesterday the jeweler was fine. Cautious, yes, but very much alive. Now his shop was closed, his blinds drawn, and something in my gut told me this wasn't just a coincidence. I turned to leave and froze. Across the street, a black sedan idled, engine humming. The tinted window rolled down halfway, just enough for me to glimpse a silhouette. Someone was watching me. Fear coursed through me, but I forced myself to keep walking, pretending not to notice. When I rounded the corner, I ducked into a cafe, my hand shaking as I clutched my phone. I needed to tell someone, anyone, but who would believe me? My fiancé's ring might be stolen, a jeweler vanished, and someone's following me? It sounded insane. I searched the ring's name, the Winter Star, and the story appeared instantly. Old newspaper clippings, scanned photos, and one haunting headline from 1998. $1 million diamond disappeared after collector's murder. My chest tightened as I read further. The victim was a French jeweler named Laurent Duval, the very man who'd originally cut the Winter Star. The suspect? His assistant, a young gemologist who fled Paris before he could be questioned. His name was Daniel Reeves. The photo loaded slowly, grainy, black and white, but clear enough to make my blood run cold. The man in the picture wasn't Ethan exactly, but it could have been his father. Suddenly, a pattern began to form, too impossible to ignore. Ethan's reluctance to talk about his family, his evasive answers when I'd asked about his past. He'd told me his father, quote, died overseas, but he'd never said how or where. What if Daniel Reeves wasn't dead? What if he'd changed his name and passed down a ring that was never his to give? The cafe door opened behind me. I glanced up, and my heart dropped. It was Ethan. "Hey," he said casually, sliding into the seat across from me. "You didn't answer my texts."
I stared, struggling to mask my fear. I just needed some air. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You went to the jeweler, didn't you? How do you... Because you always go looking for trouble, and this time you might have found more than you can handle. Something dark flickered in his gaze. My hand slipped under the table, gripping my phone, but he reached out, gently covering my fingers. Relax, he said low. We'll talk about this at home. Every instinct screamed to run, but before I could stand, he leaned closer and whispered, You really should have listened when he told you to stay quiet. The air in the cafe turned to ice. He stood, dropped a few bills on the table, and left just like that. But the way he said it, the warning in his voice, wasn't a threat. It was almost regretful, like he knew something worse was coming. I sat there trembling, realizing that I was now tangled in a story that started long before I met Ethan, a stolen ring, a dead jeweler, and a secret buried under decades of silence. And as I looked out the cafe window, I saw the same black sedan parked across the street again, only this time it wasn't waiting. It was following him. I didn't go home right away. Every instinct inside me screamed that if I stepped foot in that apartment, I might not walk out. The city was already cloaked in dusk, the streetlights casting long shadows across the sidewalks. I wandered aimlessly, my thoughts chasing each other in circles. The black sedan, the jeweler's warning, Ethan's strange behavior, it all tangled into one suffocating truth I didn't want to face. When I finally mustered the courage to return, the apartment was dark. The quiet wasn't peaceful, it was heavy, loaded with tension. Ethan? I called softly, but no answer came, only the faint sound of something dripping in the kitchen sink. I turned on a light, my pulse hammering. The first thing I saw was the ring box sitting neatly on the table. Inside, the diamond glimmered innocently under the lamplight, as if mocking me. Then I noticed a folded piece of paper beneath it, Ethan's handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. I never wanted you to find out this way. If you're reading this, it means they've already been watching you. Don't go to the police. They'll think you're part of it. Leave town. Please, just go. My breath caught. They've been watching me? I sank into the chair, my legs weak. The words blurred as I tried to make sense of it all. He wasn't denying the story, he was confirming it. A soft creak came from the hallway. I froze. Then a shadow moved. I turned slowly toward the door, my heart pounding. Ethan? He stepped out of the darkness, his face pale, eyes hollow. You weren't supposed to come back yet. I read the note. You have to tell me what's going on. He ran a hand through his hair, looking older than I'd ever seen him. It's not what you think, he said. The ring, it wasn't supposed to be yours. It was supposed to be gone. Gone? He nodded slowly. My father, Daniel Reeves, he wasn't a thief. He was framed. The real criminals killed his employer and used him as the scapegoat. He went into hiding, changed his name, tried to disappear. Before he died, he left that ring to me, said it was proof of what really happened, but I didn't know people were still looking for it. The pieces started to fit, but the picture they made was terrifying. Then why lie? Why give it to me? Because, he said quietly, I thought it would finally be safe. No one would suspect you. Tears stung my eyes, but now they do. He took a step closer, desperation breaking through his voice. I can fix this. I just need the ring. I shook my head. No, Ethan, not until you tell me everything. He hesitated, and that pause was long enough for us both to hear the sound outside. A car door shutting, then another. Footsteps. Ethan's face drained of color. They found us. What do you mean, they? Before he could answer, the front window shattered with a deafening crash. A rock skidded across the floor, wrapped in a piece of paper. Ethan grabbed it, unrolled it, and his expression darkened. He didn't have to show me what it said. I could see the fear in his eyes. "Back door," he hissed, pulling me toward the kitchen. We stumbled into the alley, the cold air biting my skin. The street was empty except for a single van parked at the far end. Ethan's grip tightened on my hand. "We have to get rid of it. If they get the ring, they'll kill us both." But something inside me shifted then. All this time, I'd been running, doubting, fearing. Now, as the truth unfolded, I realized the ring wasn't just a curse. It was the key, proof of everything. "I'm not giving it to them," I said firmly. "We take it to the police." Ethan shook his head. "You don't understand. The people after us aren't just thieves. They're the ones who covered up the original murder. They have connections, money, power." A loud bang echoed behind us. I turned. 2 men in dark coats were closing in, their faces obscured. Ethan shoved me toward the corner. "Go," he shouted. "I'll hold them off." "No!" But he was already running back, drawing their attention. I hesitated for a second that felt like eternity. Then I turned and ran, my lungs burning, the ring clutched in my palm. I didn't stop until I reached the main street, where the lights and noise swallowed me whole. When I finally looked back, the alley was empty. No Ethan, no men, just silence. I stumbled into the nearest 24-hour diner and collapsed into a booth, gasping for breath. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger, wild-eyed, broken, terrified. The ring still gleamed in my hand, cold and unyielding. That's when my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You have something that doesn't belong to you. Meet me where it all began." My fingers shook as I read it again. Where it all began. They weren't talking about me. They were talking about the jeweler.
The streets were quiet when I returned to Whitman & Sons. The jeweler's shop stood under the same flickering lamplight as before, its windows dark, its sign faintly swinging in the night breeze. Every instinct told me to turn back, to go home, to pretend none of this had ever happened. But I had come too far. Too many years of silence, too many questions buried under polite smiles and fake reassurances. Tonight, I was done being afraid. I pushed open the door. It creaked softly, announcing my presence to the shadows inside. The faint smell of wood polish and old velvet hung in the air. "Mr. Whitman?" I called, my voice trembling but firm. No answer. Then I saw the light, a dim glow coming from the back room. I moved slowly toward it, the floorboards groaning under my weight. My fingers brushed the velvet box in my pocket where the ring rested, cold against my skin. When I reached the back of the store, the door was slightly open. Inside, Mr. Whitman stood by his workbench, his back to me. He turned slowly when he heard me, surprise flashing across his face. "Helen," he said softly, "you shouldn't be here." I didn't have a choice. They told me to meet them here. His expression darkened. "Then they know." "Know what?" I demanded. "What is this really about, Mr. Whitman? Why did you lock the door that day? What did you see in that diamond?" He hesitated, then reached into his drawer and pulled out a thick folder. "You deserve to know the truth," he said. "But once I tell you, there's no going back." He opened the folder, revealing old photographs, black and white images of a grand estate, men in military uniforms, a small velvet box, identical to mine. "Your ring," he began slowly, "is not just rare,
It was part of a royal dowry from the 18th century, a collection known as the Emperor's Tears. Each diamond was inscribed microscopically with a royal crest as proof of ownership. But during World War II, the collection vanished. Some said it was stolen by soldiers. Others said it was hidden to protect it from the Nazis. I felt dizzy. What does that have to do with me? Everything, he said. Your husband's ring was one of them, and that inscription still exists. It ties the stone directly to the lost collection. If the wrong people possess it, they could use it to claim ownership of billions in hidden assets and artifacts. That's why they want it back. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. My husband didn't steal it, I whispered. No, Whitman said gently. He protected it. He must have known. He hid it in plain sight by giving it to the one person no one would ever suspect. Before I could respond, the front doorbell rang sharply. Whitman's eyes widened. They're here. He grabbed my arm and pulled me into a small storage room. Stay quiet, he whispered. Through the crack in the door, I saw two men in dark coats enter, the same ones from the alley. Their movements were precise, controlled. The taller one spoke first, his voice cold. We know she's here, Whitman. The woman. Hand over the ring. Whitman's voice stayed calm. You're mistaken. Mrs. Marsh hasn't been here in days. The shorter man stepped closer. Don't lie. We tracked her phone. He pulled out a small black device, a signal tracker, and placed it on the counter. The blinking red light stopped directly over the storage room. My breath caught in my throat. They started toward the door. And that's when I made the decision that would change everything. I stepped out, ring in hand. You want it? I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Come take it. Both men froze, startled by my defiance. The taller one smirked. You're braver than you look, lady. He took a step forward, but before he could reach me, Whitman moved faster than I thought possible. He slammed his hand down on a hidden button beneath the counter. Instantly, metal shutters dropped over the doors and windows, sealing us inside. You're not leaving with that ring, Whitman said coldly. Not today. For a tense moment, no one moved. The air was thick with danger. Then, one of the men lunged, and everything happened at once. A struggle, the sound of glass shattering, the dull thud of fists against wood. I ducked behind the counter, clutching the ring. When I looked up, Whitman was holding one of the men back, shouting for me to run. Take it, he yelled. Take it to the police, now! I didn't think. I just moved. Crawling through the side door, I burst out into the alley, my heart pounding, lungs burning. Behind me, I heard sirens, faint at first, then louder. Someone must have triggered an alarm. When I finally stopped, I was trembling from head to toe. The ring glowed faintly under the streetlight, its facets catching the light like tiny flames. I realized then that it wasn't just a symbol of love or history. It was a legacy of protection. My husband hadn't given me jewelry. He'd given me responsibility. By the time the police arrived, the men were gone. Whitman survived, though barely. The authorities later confirmed everything: the ring's royal origin, the forgery network that had been chasing it, the truth about my husband's connection to a fallen soldier who died protecting it decades earlier. The story went public. For weeks, headlines flashed across the news. Lost royal diamond, found in widow's ring. Vietnam veteran's gift, linked to global art heist mystery. But for me, none of it was about fame. It was about peace. For the first time in years, I wore my ring without shame, not as a widow clinging to the past, but as a woman who had finally uncovered the truth behind the love that shaped her life. A month later, I visited the memorial garden where my husband's name was engraved. I placed my hand on his plaque and whispered, "You were right, Jack. One day, I'd understand." The sun broke through the clouds, spilling golden light across the stone. My ring shimmered in that light, not just with beauty, but with meaning. As I turned to leave, I felt calm, strong, whole. Because love, real love, doesn't fade. It reveals. And sometimes the smallest spark hides the greatest truth of all.